I want to let you guys know, as always, the chat and the Q&A are on. If the chat, go ahead and go to the chat. Let me know if it's ready. If you guys don't mind going in there, let us know what you're dressing up for. If you're celebrating Halloween, check if the chat is available. Go in and let us know what you're dressing up for as Halloween. Let me see if it's on. I am going to be dressing up as a beekeeper. We have a nurse dressing up as a beekeeper because our daughter will be dressing up as a little bumblebee. How fun. We were going to be low effort witch fun. Maybe like just a pointy hat and a kitchen broom. That's what I'm imagining for a low effort witch. Pinocchio, very fun. Raven from Teen Titans, a good one. The new Teen Titans or the old Teen Titans? I think they changed their animation style. Oh, fun. Awesome. This is great. Thanks, guys, for your participation. Keep it going in the chat. As you guys know, if you've been here before, we love to hear from you. We love to interact with you. We love to have your or answer your questions. So as I'm going through these details here, please do not hesitate to throw some questions in the chat. And you can also use the Q&A if you would like, if you don't want to make them visible by everybody. So we'll get started here. We're going to be talking about using contract data to negotiate with vendors here today. And maybe a niche topic, kind of, but really a way to save money if this applies to you. And this is a specific example that won't apply to all businesses and use cases, but the idea is this is something that can be tweaked and used for you, because we've been talking a lot about our custom properties feature. The use of custom properties, as well as some of our standard properties, those ones that are in that summary panel. If you utilize those fields, you can record so much information that sometimes you're like, what do I do with all of it? So one thing we want to start to do is tell you what you can do with this data. And so we're going to give you some ideas of things that you can do with that data here today. So to start, I'm going to talk about our agenda on the call. We're going to talk about extracting and filtering your metadata about your vendors. We're going to talk about leveraging that data to consolidate vendors and save money. And then we're also going to be talking about using deadline reminders to negotiate better rates. And then what we're going to finish with is we're going to talk about our webinars, guys. So as we're talking about this, if you're thinking about a use case, or if you develop a use case, reach out to us. Let us know what you're doing, because we want to use you guys as an example. We want to give your company some shout outs and give you some marketing opportunities and have you on our webinars. So if you guys want to be a guest, we would love to have you join us today to talk, or join us on next webinars to talk about your use case and your organization or your company. So first, we're going to talk about some of the metadata that you can record on contracts about your vendors. So I'm going to give you some practical examples, a practical demonstration of how you can record some of this information you see below. The reason why I'm going to show you that is because in our next examples, I'm going to have another guest come on and talk about some specific ways to use this data and some specific examples to talk about it. So without further ado, I'm going to give a demonstration, a live demo about how to pull total agreement value, how to maybe pull and record total spend, as well as notification of non-renewal, and then also parties and negotiated clauses. Like, where can I find that information? How can I put that in? I'm going to tell you how to do that here. So we are talking, let me show you. So first, I have my Concord account here. Total agreement value actually is now an official term that's in Concord. It's something that's standard on every account. And so if you want to start recording total contract value, you can do so all in your summary panel. So I have a document here that's available. I have a template. So actually, I have a template here. Let's just create a draft. If I'm ready to start a new vendor agreement, I can start it, get it signed with people. Let's say I send this out for contract and I finalize signing. So now I have a fully signed document. I'm ready to add that information onto my contracts. And so the first thing that I mentioned is the total agreement value. You can find total agreement value in your summary panel if you want to record it. Come down to your key terms section. Here's a really cool thing. We've been talking about our AI a lot on Concord. If you're tired of putting in data automatically, talk to us about upgrading to AI because the AI will pull this information automatically. Total agreement value is officially being pulled automatically via AI. So if you want to put it in manually or the AI will pull it automatically for you, you can type in this information here. So I can pull the total agreement value as $100,000. I forgot where the comma goes, but I guess I don't need it. And so you can tell maybe what it's across or add a description, but I'm just going to add it. So that's how you can add your total agreement value. It'll put it here for you to find and use later. Let's talk about total spend. So total spend is not something that standard on Concord, but instead it utilizes our properties feature. So if something like total spend is something that you want to capture, you can come back to your home page, your automations tab, and your properties tab, and add your total your total spend property here. Once you've created it, you can add it like I did to your property section, and I can say my total spend is actually $120,000. Another example that will come up later is a notification of non-renewal. This is just a typical lifecycle detail. You guys are probably familiar with this. So what I'm going to do is give this an assigning, excuse me, a signing date, which is also an effective date, and give it a duration, just standard terms that you guys are probably familiar with, but also when noting when the contract ends is important, but I actually need to know when I need to start negotiating the contract by, because if my contract ends on October 24th, 2025, that's great to know. But actually, I have a notification of non-renewal for 2 months before the renewal date. So I'm putting in that notification of non-renewal because I need to notify this vendor that I want to renegotiate the terms of the contract. So I need to let them know, what is that? August 24th, 2025. So that's the notification of non-renewal. Two last things that we want to cover because they may or may not come up in these examples that we're going to talk about later are parties. Similar to the total agreement value, parties are pulled automatically via AI. If you're not using it, you can put it in manually. It just takes a little bit more of your day to do so, but you can add parties here by coming up to this section and add those parties. I'm going to put in Adidas. I'm going to also put in Dunder Mifflin as we see here. Let's take away Adidas. That doesn't make sense in the fiction that we're painting here. So I'm going to save that. Putting in metadata is great. Let's talk about negotiated clauses. Let's say there's something in here that I really need to be aware of. This notice of price increases is extremely important. I want to record it for myself to see. So I'm going to add a custom field here. I'm going to add notice of price increases and record this information there. Now I have a clause that is recorded. And so if I come back to this presentation real quick, I want to cover, we talked about a couple things that might come up in later areas, but we have a bunch of different ways to record data like this. We've extracted it. You can search for it or filter by it now from your inbox. We have ways for you to filter based on like custom properties. Maybe if I want to see total spend, or maybe if I want to see it in my inbox, you can do it that way. So we see total spend is here. We have a bunch of different ways for you to filter it and export it into reports, right? So I've covered the data in. Do we actually have any questions about how you put data into your contracts? What we're going to start talking about are two examples here in a second about what can you do with this data. We've talked about putting your data in and getting your good data out, but like the so what, we haven't really talked about that a lot on Concord, and our head of customer success is going to talk about it here. Does anybody have any questions though before we move on about how to what to do or how to put that data into your Concord account? All righty. Awesome. Well, if anything comes up, still put it in the chat, but I'm actually going to hand the microphone off to Benji, our head of customer success, who's going to give some real life examples and things that you could do with this data. So Benji, if you don't mind, tell the people a little bit about what you have to say.
Thank you, Blake. Hi, everybody. Benji Orlansky, head of customer success here at Concord. So, yeah, to Blake's point, we talk a lot about about gathering data and extracting data within Concord, and kind of what good is data unless you're actually leveraging it to make informed business decisions and save money and operate more effectively and efficiently. So, we want to talk about a couple of ways you can do that here. Number one, using deadline reminders and metadata to negotiate better rates. Why would you need deadline reminders if not to confirm that you want to renew it all in the first place? But then also, if we do want to renew with a certain vendor or certain third party, let's take advantage of that early enough so that we can negotiate and have good negotiating power going into those conversations. You may not have renewal meetings or renewal calls or conversations with each of your vendors in advance of those renewals, but being in control of when these renewals comes up gives you the chance to kind of force your hand to start that conversation early so that you don't just get hit with an auto renewal without a chance to come up with better terms. And that could be a cheaper rate. It could be more levers of service. It could be better terms, such as we're forced to pay annually, but maybe we prefer to pay quarterly, or we're stuck on an annual contract, but we'd like to be month to month. These are all different ways that you can get a better contract, a better agreement that is more advantageous to you and your business, and a way to kind of leverage loyalty with your vendors as well. I will say personally, from being on the other side, a lot of these renewal conversations of being the vendor at Concord and at other software companies in the past, very rarely do I get on a conversation with one of our customers where they've got a copy of their contract in their hands or they've reviewed it before our conversation. In fact, often I'm the one who sends a copy of the contract. I'm happy to do it, but I'm the one sending a contract to the customer. And 9 times out of 10, they would have preferred to have reviewed that document before coming into the conversation. There's all sorts of things that you can look at, reviewing the clauses and terms in advance, some of the smaller pieces that Blake had referenced earlier that you would want to create as custom fields or custom properties. Were things written into the contract that were custom, such as features or additional services that you had requested during that contract? That gives you a chance to review those to see if those actual came to fruition. That gives you that negotiating power going into the conversation. And you can look at previous years' contracts as well. If this is a multi-year, you've done multiple contracts with the same vendor, you can compare year-over-year contracts, both from looking at the document itself or by analyzing the metadata that you've tracked on annual contracts year over year to make sure that you're not trending in a place where you're getting 15, 20% price increases every year, that you're negotiating a new contract that's going to work for you. So ways you can use Concord for that. Of course, we do send out our deadline reminders, but use those deadline reminders to take action, right? Go in, review the document. Go in, look at the metadata that you've put into those documents already, and use Concord's reporting features to export documents and review all of your metadata all in one place. Those are ways that you'll come into these renewal negotiations more informed, smarter, with better negotiating and buying power, rather than leaving the power in the vendors or letting things auto renew. Before we move on to the next slide, what questions do you have on that? Any comments on using deadline reminders and metadata to negotiate better rates? All right, we'll go to the next one because this is some fun stuff here. Consolidating vendors, saving money, and Ben, thank you for adding this in here. Impress your boss. I like that. Just as an example, so I used to work at a software company that focused on materials management for construction companies. And one of the things that people would always tell us is we buy a lot of the same materials from multiple vendors, but we don't know how much we buy at different vendors. And we would have much better negotiating power if, say, we bought 500,000 feet of wire from vendor A, 500,000 feet of wire from vendor B, 500,000 feet of wire from vendor C. We were getting different rates per foot on wire from those different vendors. If I knew that I was buying 100 or 1.5 million feet of wire in a year, I could go to vendor A and say, do you want all of my business? Do you want to sell me all 1.5 million feet of wire? Give me a great rate for that, and I'll buy just from you. That's a way you can consolidate your vendors, save money on your various costs, reduce a little bit of the overhead, and save money on a per unit basis. That may or may not apply to people who are on this call, but if you've got situations where you're buying similar services, similar materials, similar office supplies, similar partnerships across multiple vendors, Concord can set you up to be in a position to have leverage to consolidate and negotiate there. So I'm actually going to share my screen a little bit here to show an example of how this can work. Okay, yeah, great. So this full disclosure is, Blake, is my screen showing okay? Okay,
Yes, it is. We can see it.
perfect. So full disclosure, this is not how the reporting would spit out from Concord. I actually went into ChatGPT and said, can you create a list of fake contracts across different vendor types, food, office supplies, and swag merchandising? ChatGPT did a great job. I particularly like the vendor name Brand It Swag for swag and merchandising that ChatGPT made up. I believe that brand is still available should anybody want to take that for themselves. But anyway, here's a list of contracts. I think there's about 30 different line items here. I see our different contract IDs here, and we're looking at a bunch of contracts across multiple vendor types here. Here's our spend, here's when the contract starts, and here's when the contract renews. Now, if I have this information, I'm looking across all of my different vendor types. And vendor type, by the way, could just be a custom property that you set up on your contracts within Concord. That way you can consolidate and view in aggregate your spend across these different vendor types. Now, if I wanted to do this kind of consolidation, this negotiation, depending on the type of vendor type that you're working with, one thing you could do is come in, take a look at your contracts, and I'm just going to do a little pivot table here. You may or may not be agile on pivot tables, but trust me, they're less intimidating than you think. If you're new to them, it's pretty simple stuff. All you want to do is all this does is take a bunch of data and make it kind of summarized and small and aggregated for you. So for my rows here, I'm going to put in my different vendor types. So now I'm looking at my food, my office supplies, and my swag and merchandising. And then I want to look at my contract spend as my value. And now I can see I'm spending $77,800 on food, and $118,100 on office supplies, and $81,100 on swag and merchandise. And then I can see, as a separate value, how many vendors am I spending that across? Whoop. Sorry. Whoop. That's vendor name. Sorry. Contract spend, drag here. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I'm spending $77,800 across 11 different food vendors. I'm spending $81,100 on swag and merchandise across 9 different vendors. Now, if I could consolidate that to 1 or maybe 2 vendors, I could theoretically get a better rate on that swag and merchandising by building loyalty with that one particular vendor, and then I'm not managing nearly as many contracts as I would be with one. So one neat thing you can do with pivot tables in Google Sheets, you can double click into one of these and it'll show you all of your contracts that fit that description there. I can come back, who are all of my vendors I'm working with, click into this, that'll show me all my contracts that I'm working with that fit into the swag and merchandise. And let's say I want to just work with Brand It Swag, cool. I can then consolidate and take this information to them to bring a little bit of buying power to that negotiation. I'm genuinely curious on this call. Does this ring a bell? Are there real life examples of people who are on this call for whom this kind of workflow, this kind of way to leverage data could be helpful in negotiating better rates or consolidation? Yes, Angel
Excellent.
Williams. Beautiful. I'd love to hear in greater detail than yes, but yes is sufficient to to validate the approach here. We'd be happy to go through this in greater detail with anybody. If you're curious how to leverage this kind of data for your specific business, I know that looking at like fake data is not always easy to connect the dots. But again, if you're working with a bunch of different vendors for the same stuff, we can help you work through how to leverage this data for yourself.
Yeah, and you're closer than you think as well. I mean, if you just have your contracts in here, it may seem intimidating. But as Benji said, we're here to help you. So we're not just we don't just want to teach you the basics of your account. The CSMs are here to make sure you know everything about your account. So if you want if you have your contracts in here and you're really just focused on just getting them in there, and that's kind of what your where your work has been, we can help you start to in this first bullet set up that metadata. If you have that metadata in there and you want to kind of get to what Benji was showing with that in that Excel spreadsheet, we're here to help you there as well. And so that link in the chat is where you can sign up for time to talk with us and work with us. We're happy. We're here to help you. All of this is available for you with your subscription right now. The AI will help you get to that point even faster, and we can have that conversation then as well. Awesome. Those are great examples, Benji. Thank you for your time. Uh, keep putting your questions in the chat or in the Q&A if you have them. But that wraps up all of the content that we had planned for you today. We appreciate, I know we see some familiar faces, and so that is encouraging for us to see that these have been beneficial for you. Here are some upcoming webinars that we have planned. So we're going to be talking about vendor management on next week's webinar, and then we're going to be talking then the next week after that about some new product features. So if these are things that you want to attend, we'll see you then. If you have use cases that are that specifically that you're using these for, or if you want to learn about them this week so you can talk about them next week, let's get together, because if you want your brand promoted on a webinar, talk with us. We'd love to have you. We love customer use cases. And also, I think other customers benefit from those even more. So really, if you want to help other people out and get your brand promoted, we would love to have you. And we'd love to promote your brand as well. So let us know. Otherwise, we look forward to seeing you on those or at those webinars. And that wraps up, like I said, now everything that we had. Are there any questions about anything before we sign off about what we talked about here today, or just anything Concord that we can help you guys out with? Absolutely. Thank you for your attendance. We appreciate you guys being here.
All right. Bye, everybody. Thank you so much.